So, welcome everyone to the second session of the Wales Regional Conference 2021, which is about hyperlocal journalism and how you juggle, or how our speaker juggles that alongside his sort of day job. So we're joined by Ben Black, who is the founder of Cwmbran Life. I keep getting mixed up with Live, but I've got it right that time. And it's a hyperlocal blog, basically. So thank you to Ben for coming. As always, if you want to ask any questions, there is a chat box on our live stream where you can ask any questions. And of course, if you're a ticket holder, you can join via the Zoom link, which is in your inbox. But we'll get started with some of my questions. So, first of all, hello, welcome. What is your, this is going to get confusing because we both call Ben. So first of all, what's your sort of background and how did you get into journalism and that kind of thing?
Background is I did a NCTJ pre-entry course about 20 odd years ago in London. And then through some work experience, I was offered a role on my local newspaper, the South Wales Argus in Gwent. So I moved back to Wales to take on that job. And then moved there into public relations. After a few years, I was really enjoying the job, enjoying the media side of it. But when I was living in Cwmbran, where I still live, I'd sort of pick up the local paper and I'd see things on my doorstep that were never in the paper. You know, the sort of things that there wasn't enough. Again, this is the overlap between digital and print. There just wasn't really the space for the stuff I would see. Obviously, you know, the website, you can keep putting things up there all day long. But I picked up a local paper, and they were just things that I felt I'd seen in that week, chatting to friends, being in the pub, you know, family had said to me that weren't quite strong enough or good enough for like a strong regional paper. So I was reading Press Gazette. In those days, it was actually a monthly, or was it fortnightly printed magazine. And there was a feature on hyperlocals, and there was a story of a couple in London. I think one of them was the Brixton Bugle. Another in South London, and just intrigued me when I saw this with hyperlocal, how people were just starting at websites and providing a bit of a service locally, you know, different to the main media. So I just went to WordPress, had no experience at all of websites, and just started a WordPress, you know, self-hosted, hosted by WordPress blog, called it Cwmbran Life, and just started from there really. Just, you know, starting to post, you know, do the little stories that I'd come across. You know, I'd be in my local pub and there'd be, you know, be a beer festival. You know, the landlady about, you know, why it was being held, and, you know, a little audio link, which I then post on the website. But just stuff that was in front of me. So from that, I just kept it going really. I think I'm coming up to 10 years this August. I think it was 11. I think it's 10 in August. So yeah, it's grown into something that I just love. You know, I enjoy my day job, I enjoy this, and it just keeps me happy. Really, you know, being able to go out in the community, meet people, sort of tell their stories, you know, things they didn't know about, and celebrate the area. Yeah. If you're not quite sure how hyperlocal is, it's just basically looking after a patch. It could be, you know, a street, an estate, a town. You know, it's a bit quite flexible term. Some people don't use it. Some people just use community journalism. But then there's no journalism community because most stories all start very local. And I've had lots of examples over the years where something that I've started very local has just gone and ended up on national papers, a few TV stories and stuff over the years, which is a bit overwhelming when it happens. You know, something you've started with has just suddenly been used by lots of other people and just borrowed, taken, but all about back to, you know, where hyperlocal comes from is that that's a whole word, passion. You know, you really care about your community where you live, and I think what I've been able to do in the last 10 years is create something that's brought people together. That's what it means to me. That's where it's come from.
Yeah. Why do you think we've seen sort of a growth of hyperlocal journalism in the sort of last 10 to 15 years?
I think it's been a lot easier. You know, 10 to 15 years ago, you'd have to create, if you were, creating some sort of opposition or some sort of challenge to the big media, you have to have a printing press. With WordPress being free, you can do it. And the way, social media, websites, the ease of stuff, it's just the barriers to entry are so accessible to anyone. I obviously hold at best some professional standards. Obviously, lots of hyperlocals, with lots of your colleagues, as student journalists, have professional standards and ethics and things and professionalism around what journalism is. So I think there's a difference there between the sort of the sites, the professional hyperlocal sites, against local issue sites, or where just someone thinks they can write some things and it's a bit, there's a huge bias to it, or there's not a balance. There's also back in the change from print to digital. Some of the most successful hyperlocals are from where journalists lost their jobs in the print media, but still saw there was like a gap in the market for something that would be sustainable and pay for itself, and they've been able to do that. What I think as well, when you hear about viewing figures, print figures, media figures, people are interested in local news. There's no denying it. That's it's not people are interested in news. It's the way they're sort of getting it, receiving it has changed. So I think more and more maybe former journalists, current journalists are seeing that as a bit of an opportunity. My frustration with, I love my local paper. It covers a large county, and if I read about a shed being burgled 30 miles away, it wouldn't really bother me. But a shed being burgled 2 or 3 miles down the road, where I might have a relative in that street, really affects me. And I think that's where the growth has come from.
Yeah. Why is it? So, do you think it's particularly important that this is sort of sprung up and become sort of, I suppose, one of the few growth parts of the journalism industry with more and more hyperlocal sites? Do you think that's sort of important to see, and why? What does it represent?
It's incredibly important because if people haven't got the local media has always been like a place that gives people a voice. And they might have their own personal Facebook page, but it's not the same as an independent news organisation. Amplifying that voice, standing up for them, letting them know things they didn't even know about that are going on in the area. It's so important. Yeah, if that sort of taken away, what are people? What brings them together? Part of the reason why I started Cwmbran Life, I actually felt that it had a lot to offer, and I couldn't see it being represented anywhere. There's lots of places in Cardiff and Bristol which are quite, both those towns are quite close, both those cities are close. So I wanted to bring that kind of that kind of pride, passion. People, it's quite good where we live, because everyone talks down where they live, don't they? You're allowed to. When other people do it, is we don't like it. But I was just seeing things that just weren't being. Oh God, I haven't found another jargony word. Weren't being shared a bit wider. So it's incredibly important. If people haven't got that source of information that's independent and biased, then you lose out on people lose out. I think so.
Yeah, I think they can be a really valuable sort of resource, because I'm in quite a lot of local area Facebook groups, both where I live now and where I was at uni, and they can be quite biased. But I think having somewhere that's sort of an independent arbiter to say this is what's actually happened in this event, I think that's really good, and something that having it on a hyperlocal site, it might not normally get covered, but it would in that case. So I think that's really good. And and the point you just made about bias and about being measured to sort of combat that is a really important one.
It's definitely a challenge. The bias thing is definitely a challenge. I think 2 examples where people don't quite get what my website was about. Like 2 years ago, we had an event in the town, a Stop Brexit meeting. Yeah, simple public event. I couldn't go to it. I was away or whatever it was, but it was taking place. So I just did a story saying Stop Brexit rally or event take place in the stadium. Register here, normal, just an event. And the grief I got back off people, just this is through, it was on the website, comments, then through Facebook. Cwmbran Life is non-political, take this crap down, what's all this about Brexit is happening, just people. And what I don't see, the big regional media do, which I can do, I do often respond to people. So it was quite funny. I was sort of saying, well, if you organise a hurry up with Brexit rally event, that'll get exactly the same balance of coverage. It's just an event. Go to it, don't go to it. Protest outside, don't protest outside. It's just an event. But it was one way I felt people were, because it is just me on my own. I was getting a lot of attacks because people had seen this thing of people not respecting the vote, and it's just news. There is an event taking place there. I wish I could have gone and done a bit more on it, but and then last year I did this was quite a headache. I invited all the candidates in the general election covering the county I'm in to like a sort of Facebook Live Q&A, not with an audience, just with people submitting questions on Google Forms, and I sort of themed them up, and I had a bit of stuff over that as well, because not every candidate could turn up, as the nature of these things are, but I was completely open with how it was being run. And there was some comments there around, you're so biased and we're not, was so-and-so being invited. And I ended up backwards to get every candidate there, and a few couldn't come, and that's just the nature of it. But yeah, that when people say I'm not, when there's comments around bias, that just makes me, the only thing I'm not biased about is loving stuff in Cwmbran. I'll big up stuff that would never get picked up in the local paper, would never get picked up. It's like, that's actually really good, So yeah, that's what when people have enjoyed it, they see that, so there's no shame there.
Yeah. Do you think there's probably a financial aspect to that, to why those stories don't get coverage? Because, well, you said yourself, like, if a shed got burgled 30 miles away, you wouldn't be that interested in a story, and obviously someone who lives 30 miles away wouldn't be that interested in a shed being burgled in Cwmbran. So is there like a financial aspect to these papers saying, no one's going to buy our paper because of this story, so we can't cover it? There's not that much there's not that much benefit to us for covering it, whereas you don't have that. You can sort of cover with whatever you need, because it's online and people don't need to purchase it. Do you think that's something you can do and they can't?
Yeah, I think you're right. I suppose the speed of it as well, being online, not thinking about the commercial side of it, because I'll talk about money stuff afterwards. So I'm happy to explain some things that have happened when money's been involved, and but Cwmbran Life isn't sustainable. I'd love it to be if it was. But like, wow, that sounds like quite a nice ambition, but there's no commercial aspect of things. So something as small as a shed being burgled. But you find, if you're looking at hits and views, people are interested. People that really floats people's boat. Over. So if I the bigger following of the bigger regional stuff, it probably would be a commercial aspect to it. But people want to know about stuff that's happening where they live. Crime successes. But I've I go to the level that a paper just wouldn't. I can't even examples. If I do, I was like, well, I'll think of some that just would never ever appear. I mean, I've done stuff that's appeared as nibs in the local paper, that they've obviously spotted and followed up nib stuff, there's been other front page stuff they followed up that I've seen, so, but I don't think that. I just think of what I'm doing and what I'm in control of, and what it does for the town, and
I think the fact that people do read it on your site shows that there is that interest there, and that the slightly larger papers probably are wrong to not cover it, because there is the interest there. That people probably just a lot of people won't be aware that these things happen because they're not being covered normally, unless there is a sort of hyperlocal site like yours picking them up, I think. And and the exact same with student papers covering stuff that the local paper in a city won't want to cover, but is of real interest to those students, and then it gets picked up. So I think they're quite similar mediums in that regard.
Yeah, I tell you, I'm on competition with anyone. It doesn't bother me when the thing is picked up. It's it's news, but it just shows there is interest in news. I know that local print media struggles, and it just is at the minute, with all COVID as well and shops being closed. It's hard. But I don't think people's interest has changed.
No.
The need for information that's, relevant to them at the right time, and that's where the big media's, it's got years of reputation of, local papers being around for 100 years,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So obviously, you said it's nearly the sort of 10th anniversary of your site, which is, it's really impressive, and that's a long time to be doing something in your spare time. Going back to sort of when it started, so what was the process of like getting it started, building it up, making sure people were aware that it existed and read it? What was sort of the process you went through?
One, just set it up. I didn't think too much about it. I just did it. There wasn't like the plan is this is going to be. And I started with some really easy things. If I walk to local shops and there's a poster board, and there's events taking place, give them a bit of a leg up, about promoting the events, just information stuff really. Eyes and ears as well. So through my own sort of friends through social media, I would see stuff I would just jump on. I do a daily quick search of Twitter of the town, and I used to just reply to people whose stuff that just sounded like, oh, that sounds a bit, just interested and unusual. And just telling people, that, and then obviously, your friends start seeing it grows a little bit. And everyone I spoke to, I paid a lot of interest in. So there were times where I've given, many years ago, I've given a story to a local paper and said, oh, can you ring so-and-so because this sounds, and then call them back. They obviously decide it's not what it should be, or it's a news in brief, I gave people a lot of time, I'd see, I don't know, the probably really like, I'd see this is one from the a pantomime was taking place. So that's interesting. Where do they practice it? So I went and watched their dress rehearsal, when they were the coffee. A few for pictures, to promote the show. But that meant all those people there were like, oh, this person with this Cwmbran thing sounds been interested in us. And then next, a while later, they'll be thinking of me when something similarly comes out and they'll be telling me about it. So it's that kind of building relationships and keeping all the phone numbers and, who spoke to and why, and just paying interest in people really. And it's hard to fake, I would generally go out my house, spend 2.5 hours in a hall watching, waiting for the break in the the panto practice just to get some pictures and a photo with the dame and a quick audio link. And it's because I was enjoying it, and I still enjoy it. So we're paying attention to people and just getting back to them, where possible. Sometimes I'd say, oh, this is just point in the direction of another journalist because there's some really unusual stories that have come my way. But yeah, definitely just those old skills of being interested, asking questions, and sometimes the time, where I've my other half, I got a teenage daughter who's 14, and it drives them nuts. I can honestly, you won't believe how many times we'll be walking through town, and they'll see I've seen something, and they're like, oh, like a shop's closing down or shop's opening or just something, and they can see my face and they'll know I'm stuck, and because I have to go over there and just have a little nose, and I'd be in the house, something's happened, and I'd be like, oh man, I gotta quickly get this out because I've got to leave. So it is definitely a bit of extra effort, you need to show, but as long as it's fun and you see the benefit of it and it's not a chore, I don't know. That's why I've probably managed to keep doing it for 10 years. I definitely go through ups and downs, I'm sure your colleagues will spot this way. You generally just can't be bothered, I'll have emails, and this is changed. All day you'd be a fax machine, I guess. Now you have WhatsApp, Messenger, text message, direct message on social media. People could tell you things, and you just forget where they told you. I'm like, where did that? This morning I was texting you this morning. I was like, I emailed and I texted. I was going back to your name then to text you, keeping track of that. And sometimes I just get enough of it and I just cannot be bothered, Obviously I've got a day job, so if someone rings me, it's a message in the day, I don't go back to them. I don't, I'm at work. But people will hassle me for things. I do when it's sort of off topic a little bit. Lost and found. In the old days, in the paper, you have a lost and found column. Like Facebook page for Cwmbran Life. I've often thought of doing like a challenge. The amount of times people have found stuff they've lost is just crazy. But a guy on Monday messaged me, and this is what people used to find a little paper, the lost and found column. My husband lost a Garmin watch, which I'm sure are pretty expensive, I imagine. 20 minutes later, it was found. Someone saw it, didn't know where to post it, didn't know where to see it. So in a week, Cwmbran loses everything. Phones, children's coochie things. And going back to hits and interest, people, don't want to help other people. So yeah, lost and found is and sometimes I'm like, is this just a lost and found page? In fact, do you know what? You just reminded me. Someone messaged me yesterday, right? Again, this was in the daytime because I haven't looked back through. Hold on a sec. Where was it? Yeah, it's from yesterday. Hi, I just messaged the page with a photo of a gents wallet found in favourite shops. Could you get a poster for me ASAP? And I haven't. And I feel bad. I was at 3:58 yesterday, just because my number's on the page and stuff on the website. And I feel bad. I'm like, oh man. Hopefully she's found it themselves. But yeah, and that's where when you are helping support people, you feel a bit crap when you let them down. It's not letting them down,
Yeah.
It's the end of the world. But I'm like, just triggering me then over lost and found. Yeah, set of car keys, car keys with a photo on it, be found within two minutes. People will just, oh, that's mine,
Yeah.
Sorry.
How does it feel sort of having that role in a community that that local news reporters can get because reporting it, but you've got a role in the community that they can't ever reach because that you've got sort of, well, you're more connected to the area because you're the only person sort of that focused on Cwmbran specifically. But how does it sort of make you feel having built up that sort of position and role in the local area?
Yeah, I love it. I'm done hard over. I'm done now. We can get a bit of help because it is just me, and getting content on a WordPress site isn't the easiest workflow. So sometimes too much goes towards Facebook's way, which is a whole different story about monetization and Facebook role and things, which we chat about as well, which I find really interesting. But I love it.
Yeah,
makes me happy. I get a buzz. I'll be in the little shops and someone will go, "Oh, you're the guy that does that Cwmbran thing," and they'll I'll be walking through town and someone will, and I got awful face for like faces and stuff. Yeah, it's like yeah, I love it. I can't say anything really. It gives me a bit of a buzz,
Yeah.
It's just always on my mind in the evenings. I'm like, right, well, obviously COVID's been hard because you can't hype about as much. It's different, different way. But yeah, the feedback I get off things and people saying thank you, and local businesses is another. Giving local businesses a leg up is, I think, it's so important. And hopefully, think of media and monetization. Businesses need to advertise and linking back later on with business startups. I've had loads of comments off people who've I get loads of work from you and stuff, just because I'm celebrating local business, employs local people, brings more stuff there, creates jobs, local pen being spent, and it's so more important now than ever, really. I did in my local shops, a tiny little shopping centre during when one of the lockdown things, when a certain type of shop could reopen. I can't remember what it was. One of the, I get so confused in the lockdown, out of lockdown. I went to the shop to get a paper. I still buy paper every day. And as I was walking back, I saw this little hardware store. And Bev, the owner of it, I saw there. And there was a hairdressers in the corner, and they were getting ready, doing all their protective stuff. That's right, hairdressers were opening the week after. So things were just getting a little bit, all this protection stuff and opening. And then I went around every shop, and I said, can I do a Facebook Live? I'm just going to come in, talk to you about what you're doing. A customer saying safe. And then I was there for 45 minutes, my hand at the end. But I had the chip shop man, guy in the chip shop, dog salon, the takeaway. The Indian takeaway was closed. What else was there? hairdressers. There was like a laundrette, yeah, and they loved it. I go in the shops now and they're like, "Oh, you helped us with that. Thanks for putting the, like, don't get freebies out of it. Just get a thank you and yeah. 45. And I went there to get a paper. So my wife was like, "Where have you been?" I'm like, "Oh, I just like to get my phone out and just which I can then use on the website." But yeah, just don't give them a leg, a sort of leg up in that time.
Yeah. Did you, when you were starting out, did you find it quite hard to sort of build up those initial contacts? Because when I was in my third year of my undergrad, they sort of had this module where to start a hyperlocal site in Sheffield. So we picked one of the, just pick one sort of, well, we picked a council ward and as sort of our boundaries. And they said, to build up contacts, go and, just sort of walk around and talk to people. So one afternoon I thought, well, they did specifically say go to pubs. So one afternoon I just went around a few different pubs, but couldn't build up the confidence to like actually talk to anyone. So I didn't actually find any stories or anything. Did you find that particularly hard in terms of building up those initial contacts when you just started and people, weren't already aware of your site?
It's probably the easier ones, really. The easier kind of foot in the door for like stories, I suppose. So what's the example? Like schools. So schools, love celebrating their kids. Messaging a school. I've seen this picture you've put on Twitter. Lots of schools use Twitter, but not Facebook because Facebook blows their mind. Contact a local school. Say, that thing you did was brilliant. Can I do a story on that? Can I, come in, have a chat? You start with some of the sort of the easier ones. Obviously, the local councillor is always interesting. Again, as a councillor want to promote what's going on in their ward, them being sort of aware and supportive. You could offer the local councillor as a really easy one. The local councillors obviously make sure that all the parties are covered in the area, all the politicians are covered. Like a column, could you do 300 words every month for us? And just immediately that council will be sharing that thing on his or her social media. And start with the ones that are just like easy, and then I guess the stronger stuff comes a bit later. But yeah, I think definitely walking in a pub would be quite, definitely. I'd struggle with that, walking in a random place. I think so some of the easiest places where people are interested. Sports clubs, I just saw once when a little girl scored like her 100th goal for her club. I kind of how I spotted it. It was just easy. It was like the club were all over it. The parents were all over it, and then you've got the club and the football team. And then what was that? What's that hyperlocal for that patch in Sheffield? Oh yeah, that's you've seen the reactions. You've seen the face on the website or the picture. Just really easier ones that you start with, and then those things will help because all those people will be. The school would share a link to a story on their social media. Same with the sports club. And obviously the sad thing is with those, the sports clubs is, my local paper, the sports pages, the local sport is just being sort of removed from it. There's not that proper, underneath like the main football club, the county league club, Division 2 club, there used to be a page of, the sports reports the teams would send in, the league stuff, all that's gone. So some of those clubs, offering a match report or again, you're getting the foot in the door of a group of people who are influential and just by being helpful and supportive and doing it, oh God, I love what you can we help out, and that builds up for the stronger stuff. Then being known, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. I did have a question following on for that, but I appear to have completely forgot it. That's unfortunate. I mean, that's classic journalism in a way, and obviously typical Zoom events. Do you find yourself sort of focusing on certain topics a lot more in sort of what you write about? Like you'll find yourself writing something and think, hang on, I've written like 5 stories in this vein this month. Do you find that there's certain things that are really sort of central to what you cover?
No, nothing central really. trying to think of examples of I've done everything. When I mentioned like lost and found and business startups, sometimes I'm like, oh, this is becoming a bit just here's a new business. Someone's lost their phone, just the little quick stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's always the human interest stuff that people, love the most. So yeah, getting people to talk and people to be the focus of it is something I probably try harder at, which all journalists should do, obviously, don't worry about councils and businesses, it's the people. But when you're on your own, it is just a bit of a juggle sometimes. Yeah, really nice human interest story. I've had just in December, this is one of the real challenges of hyperlocal, being local and being incredibly local. When people pass away, so I've approached a few people to do tribute stories. I'm avoiding that weird word death, not that it's often used because it never felt as negative as that. But a friend of mine's wife passed away with breast cancer a couple of years ago. So I knew on my left, I approached him and approached his brother, who said, yeah, I'm sure he would. I went and sat in his garden and he cried his eyes out. It just, when I was sat there recording him, it was the easiest way to do it, instead of writing, just chat. But just I loved, that's something I love to try, and if I was going to try and get a theme and focus, those kind of, on Christmas Eve, just gone, there was a car accident in the town. I saw the road being closed, there's road closure signs. And again, just Christmas Eve, I was like, I saw it closed a few times during the day. It was obviously, it was a long period of time. And then 10:30 at night, Christmas Eve, a friend texted me and said, have you heard about Dapper? As soon as he said it, I didn't know it was enrolled in an incident, but a friend was he was cycling along, incident with a vehicle, he passed away. And I messaged him on social media weeks before. I did lots of stuff with him. So I left it a week before I got in contact with his sister, and she was over the moon with this stuff, the tributes and the rugby. He was involved in the rugby board.
Yeah.
So I do love, even though the thought of making those little, approaches, but what's helped where people see how you approach stuff and the trust side of it, or not. People are just happy to and want to celebrate people's lives. That's I've really enjoyed them. They take a lot of time and effort. It's like, oh God, you've done me this bit wrong, and what's the tone of it? And this is one way as a hyperlocal, when you're on your own, is I was writing the story about this my friend, the cyclist. The word accident was going through my mind, and I read something somewhere about accidents and cyclists, and I googled it. Yeah, there's some guidance that's been issued at some point, or some consultation over it. So over this thing of a cyclist died in an accident, and it's sort of, until there's an outcome of something, was it an accident? And you can often make cyclists just be like, oh, they're accidents, because there's always guidance, and I really had to go through it and think, I've got no one to ask, I'm not going to edit it, or know what to run it by. I was like, so it took me a bit more time to try, and I didn't want to do anything that would upset people, especially the family, over the use of words that might, yeah. So I love the human stuff, and that's always the the best.
Yeah.
The Facebook Live as well, is that a theme? I've done loads of Facebook Lives over the last year.
Yeah.
Facebook monetization, all that malarkey. But there's a distribution and people seeing it, and it is still popular. It's been as part of it. I've done a few videos in the past where I would take 6-7 hours to go and speak to someone, do something, bit of editing on my phone, and a bit of iMovie on just an extra layer. And then I thought, hold on a minute now, I can knock this out in 5 minutes on Facebook Live and have a bit of a laugh and make it just on the cuff. So Facebook Live is just a bit of fun. And my advice is just go for it. Just start it and just speak and just have a bit of a plan how you're going to finish. People know when you're going live with them. But and that gives a video which I've used on my website that I follow, embedded on the website and stuff. So, but it's for ease and quickness. That's been really fun actually. Is that a theme? Yeah, Facebook has been good. And I often challenge people, if they could come along and I'm like, oh, can I do a Facebook Live? What do you mean? I went, honestly, it's painless. You're a great character. Go into the, behind the scenes, whatever you're doing. It's just, that's been, again, just a new skill as well. So I'm just trying something out.
You've just mentioned, obviously, that, you had to be quite careful with that guidance on that story. And obviously, you don't have like an editor to turn to for sort of, as a sounding board. Like, what do you think of this? Am I on the right track? How do you sort of manage that? I imagine quite a lot of stories it's not as much of an issue, but in ones like that it can be a quite a big sticking point, something you have to think about. How do you sort of manage that, I suppose, and how do you where there is sort of ethical or media law things you have to think about, how do you sort of manage that and think about that in your work?
A long time ago I did the NCTJ stuff. I'm always reading, keeping up to date. I'm not keeping up to date at all. That's a lie. I read and follow a lot of, media sites. And a lot of it is my gut reaction. Essentially, completely unprofessional, but I'll pause. I did once have to contact when I was doing the Facebook Live last year for the elections. There was a few things that came up around some of the questions I was being asked by various people involved, candidates. And it really challenged me over, so I did contact them. In Cardiff University, there's a School of Community Journalism. I'll email you some links later, Ben. So my site is a member of the Independent Community News Network, who, I think there, even give it a little sort of membership press badge. The independent communityjournalism.co.uk. It's basically Cardiff University, but it covers all over. And they're like a sort of representative lobby group, because I'm not sure if Hyperlocal doesn't get membership of the NUJ yet. It obviously has to be if journalism is your full-time occupation, I think. But the Independent Community News Network has recognised that lots of these sites are providing this service. So they've lobbied for like Facebook training, Facebook funding, grant stuff, public sector advertising, not things I've benefited from, but I've run them once or twice. I'm almost certain with them as well, they give access to legal advice if there was anything that really troubled you. I can't go in, I haven't got the time, the skills, the resources to go into court, cover a court story, start to finish. That's a different that's where the local media do a brilliant job of what they do. Things like that where you probably get a bit more unstuck. I had a mum once, is it legal? I did a story about a guy, and the mum got in touch with me and said, look, my son's a teenager. Obviously, she was separated from the partner. I'm not happy with his pictures being used. I know the dad's given permission, but I'm not happy. And I'm in the middle now, like, obviously, family dispute, a partnership splitting up. And I just, again, a media organization would take a different view, I suppose, but I just felt that, being 14, 15 and being in stories that your dad has said, yeah, that's fine. They weren't negative. They were they were fun pictures, but I took them down. I thought, I feel a bit, I'm not sure about that, so I wouldn't have been legal advice. I was more just, and she spoke really kind. She said, you've done stories with him before. He's younger, now he's 14, 15, mates in school, spotting stuff, and it was just, I'm bored with the details of the stories, but I took them down. I took the photos off just because it didn't seem like worth a battle being over. So some of the crime stuff, again, obviously the police put out stuff. I'll often just, again, part of the local service, I'll share what local media are doing. So, and this is me, not other sites who do the same, but with the local media, I've covered a really strong court case. I'll just share the link on social media. One of the weird little buzzes I get sometimes is, the top 10 stories, top 20 stories, I'll see something on the night and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I'll just see it shoot go up the list a little bit, So non-competition, I just love, it's a little weird buzz that I get from when I share it with the people that follow my site. But again, relying on them to be obviously the ethics, the balance, all around court stories. So yeah.
I'd like to talk a bit about how you sort of juggle doing your website, but obviously you've got a full-time job as well, which is, how the situation a lot of our members also find themselves in, where they're sort of trying to do their degree, 8 hours a day, and then sort of find the time to find stories, interview people, come in and lay up newspaper pages and stuff like that. So have you got any advice on sort of how you managed to do both? Obviously you've talked a bit about how you have to be quite get up and go with if you see something, you've often got to go and think, right, I need to cover this now. But have you got any other advice on like how you sort of balance the two?
Yeah, I think don't be too hard on yourself. I said about the highs and lows, where sometimes if you've been in college all day and you listen to things, we're all staring at screens far too much at the minute. Sometimes you do need a sort of break away from it, because when you do it, you've got to love it. You've got to really, it can be fun and be like, wow, this is, what a buzz I get from this thing I'm going to get. I've tried to, for example, if I got to edit a couple of videos, batch them up and be like, right, Thursday night, 7 till 9, I'm going to edit 2 videos. I'm going to get them, and nothing else around it, just focus on that. Another one, if there's like a bunch of emails I haven't replied to, I block out, I say, right, now I've got to get back to those people. And like Facebook Messenger, the message I ignore, I don't ignore, but they just build up. So I can't do them in the daytime. Morning's a bit of a rush. So just calendar block it and see, right, have a cup of coffee and just focus on the one thing that will move you forward a little bit. So if there's, if you're juggling a couple of little stories and waiting for things to come in, so a deadline, 30 minutes, I'm going to have that story up, linked, ready to go, ready for proofing. So yeah, that kind of deadline urgency, because we're all working on our own sort of time, so deadlines can be a little bit, obviously the print going off is a bit different, but yeah, batching things up. So you're almost in the frame of mind of, writing up interview notes or planning questions for an interview. You like doing things all at once, if there's 2 or 3. And then if there's something you think that's just going to fly and be wow, then drop everything and do that, drop everything else around it. I've got, with my emails and social media, right, auto message. It just says, I check these messages every couple of days. This is on Facebook Messenger on the page. Every couple of days, if it's urgent, send me a message or text me. So like most people sort of appreciate that, Obviously, someone last night thought a lost wallet was urgent. It probably isn't the person's lost their wallet, but when I'm in work, it's not something I can even, give any headspace up for. But yeah, batching stuff. So you just focused on the one set of things, and timing it. I got family and stuff, and if I'm watching some thing at 9 o'clock, I'm like, right, I got to get that done. It's like, right. And the standard might not be brilliant for that video edit or that particular write-up, but sometimes it's like, no, this is around everything else in my life. This is going to help and move on, but I'm not going to, worry too much. So yeah, time batching stuff up with themes, writing, interviewing, or editing, and then just setting yourself a deadline. Use a time on your phone. Just say, right, this is a 20-minute job. This is, or this is, I don't know. It's a boring press from the council. This is 20 minutes to turn this around into something, and make it quick. Just because sometimes you can't spend a bit more time on things that you don't need.
And sort of what lessons have you learned in the sort of 9-10 years that you've been doing this that might be useful for our, because obviously they're not reporting on communities in the same way that you are, but campus is sort of like a community, even if this year they're not the same as campuses are the same as normal. But what lessons have you learned in terms of covering hyperlocal news that might be quite adaptable to those watching this?
Grab video whenever you can, if you're out and about. One of the first stories I did that went a bit like, I call it a story, I'm not sure if it's a story, but he disagrees, so we treat me Jewish right now. I was in my local Asda in Cwmbran, and on a Saturday night, I just ran in there, and I put the vegetable aisle, and I saw a woman pushing a trolley full of booze in a full dressing out, full wedding gown. And I saw her, there was people like smiling, and she just walked around Asda in a full outfit with booze. And I just approached her and said, I asked, did you get married today? Establish the facts first. It could be fancy, yes, could be whatever. And I said, I do this website called Cwmbran Life. And she said, oh, I've heard of that. I said, can we get a photo? And she said, yeah. So I turned around, got a photo with Asda in the background, with a trolley full of booze. And then I went, oh, can I get a video? So she did a 20-second clip. And by the time I left Asda, it was on YouTube. I wrote the story in my head as I was driving home. And it went out. It was purely because of the video. And since then, this was 8-9 years ago, and it's more relevant than ever now. Really, people just the media landscape is all about videos. So that's one tip. It's pretty obvious, but that particular story the next morning was everywhere. It went everywhere. My TV, newspapers, Daily Mail nicked a picture from the screen grab and used it. Didn't get paid anything for it. I think the Sun paid me something. I can't remember. There's a few bits of payments. But it just went. The video was being taken and grabbed and used and all sorts. But I was like, if I didn't get that video, it wouldn't have been the same. Another example of video was last October, November. I was invited to it wasn't in lockdown, was it? Going back quite about a year ago. It was before COVID. Probably over a year ago. A guy in the town. My friend's grandfather was turning 100, and my friend said, do you want to come to the party? He's such a character, he walks every day to town, he goes shopping, he really dances. And I was like, I was away, my mother-in-law was in Portsmouth a weekend, I couldn't change the plans. And that night, she sent me a video of her granddad dancing with his walking stick, 100 years old, surrounded by his grandkids. It just stood out, was like, again, a proper Cwmbran local, what a character, this. She sent me the video, so I said, can I use it on my YouTube and everything else? Yeah, it's fine. And then an agency or two got hold of it, and it was Piers Morgan shared a format of it. Not off my site, unfortunately, but it was on my video. And if I'd gone, it'd be my video that I'd have probably paid my website for a year, probably just to get hosted. I'd have made not just about the money, but I knew I wouldn't have owned the things myself.
Yeah.
That was another one that started on my website, but and obviously they found the family within minutes because the names and stuff. Can we use the video? Yeah, we can. It was every news. It was everywhere. That's a lesson, I suppose. You just be interested in people. God, I if it's interesting enough for a story, you smile and be interested when you're there, when you're trying to find stuff out. A lesson, I don't know, is it? Yeah, I suppose it is really. Enjoy it, enjoy that kind of, this is my patch, it's mine, It's maybe when I see a story like that fly, that started with me and it was no one else apart from my little thing, you get a bit of a buzz from it, so keep that in mind, you're helping people in the area to be aware of things, celebrate in the area, all those things around it. That sort of advice, that a little bit.
Yeah.
I've a few. This advice. Some of the, some stories go a bit further, and most things that I've done haven't made. Over the years, it's been once or twice a year something lands and it just gets picked up. That's been my sort of, and that has basically helped pay for website hosting, other stuff, and improve, to keep myself, just paying for itself sort of thing. So I've had agencies contacting me, say, can we use this? Again, with your wider contacts as a journalist, you knows better than me, having a link with an agency, or preferably direct with the newspapers. I've given to agencies before when I had the pictures myself and the quotes and things, and I probably would have made a bit more for my website, and invested back in if I'd done it direct. Copyright, you own the pictures, you own the video. It's once I did a story in the street, boy, the details. I did a video, did pictures, a walk around video of this thing, and the next day it was on ITV Wales and like regional TV channel. It was all their social media. It was like, that's my video. They've literally downloaded it, and it was a cock up in their process, and they just said send me an invoice. They obviously whoever was, there was complete cock up on their part, but it was everywhere. And I've done and created and just completely taken away. So with people will, there is some payments there for stuff, where you've created something, you've spent time on it. It's not much, but then I'm not the experience that you and your colleagues will have and get better at over that. It's helped me improve the website. I've never paid myself. I've just, it's bought me. I've got like a plug-in microphone for my phone. Bought me a tripod. Doesn't pay for petrol. It's just kept it. But I think being a bit better at that, when things do fall on your lap, that there's a sort of price for it. I always get the local regional media. The regional media will often ask for a phone number, or can I use that photo? And a few times I've said, "Oh, can you help me out?" Because I'm, it's all, a little tax return each year. It helps keep me running, and I want to get it bigger. And sometimes they won't. There's just no money there, so which frustrates you. But yeah, be a bit more commercial. I think there is value in news.
Yeah.
There's more value in videos.
Yeah. I'm a bit mindful of time, so I've only got one question left, but and then we'll we'll finish off. But so the one thing we've been asking everyone, all our speakers at our visual conferences this week, is what the best advice you've ever got in journalism is. So, what is the best advice you've ever had in your career?
Yeah, write every phone number down. Keep every phone number.
Yeah.
So, as an example, when I was in the chip shop doing the video of the Facebook Live, Rob in the chip shop, I called him his phone number. I said, he wasn't big into Facebook, and I said, I'll send you a link afterwards. Give me your number. So he's like on my phone. I've texted him a few times. Rob, Fairwater, chip shop. So. When you need something happens in Fairwater, I might have forgot Rob's name, but you can search Fairwater and find Rob. There could be a chip shop story. Chip shop. It used to be in the contacts, but it used like multi things everywhere. But yeah, keeping all the phone numbers. Social media is great. Yeah, DMs and all that stuff. But being able to ring someone up, and also link to that, not being afraid of ringing people up. Social media is obviously a really brilliant way of accessing older people. But just take the extra step and people, on certain things, want to talk. But keep all of that the phone numbers you've kept. That's one of my that's helped me on loads, where I've seen something and I think, I need to, oh yeah, I remember you, and yeah, every single one. There should be no exceptions, yeah. My phone number is just I'll find phone numbers on it. Like let me find there was one before. It made no sense to me. I know what the name of the pub down now, just to see. Sorry. Glyn the Bush. No idea what he is. Glyn the Bush. There's a pub called the Bush. Cocker Avenue Christmas event, Jen. So I'll see someone find and we're going to friend. I'm like, who's that? Oh yeah, I've said I just keep your number, keep in touch with you, and yeah. Definitely the best. Let's shout it out.
Great. So that brings us to the end of our session on hyperlocal reporting. Thank you to Ben for coming to talk to us. I thought that was really interesting in itself, because I have learned a lot about hyperlocal reporting that I didn't know. But it's really interesting for our sort of members who are trying to do the same as you and balance sort of reporting as well as their day-to-day study. So I'm sure that'll be really valuable to them. In about an hour, we've got another of our regional conference sessions with former Cardiff City and Wales international footballer turned columnist Nathan Blake. So join us on YouTube for that, or if you sign up for tickets, the link should be in your email. But thank you for coming, and we'll see you in about an hour.
Cheers.
Right, that was done. That was really good.